David always liked to spend his afternoons in a quiet coffee shop near his apartment. It was a small place, with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and the faint smell of roasted coffee beans lingering in the air. He enjoyed the calmness, the gentle background chatter, and the feeling of having a space where he could think. On this particular day, the shop was busier than usual. People were talking loudly, moving around, and the usual calm atmosphere was interrupted by the noise of clinking cups and hurried conversations. David didn't mind. He had brought a book with him, one he had been slowly reading over the past few weeks, and he settled into his chair with a cup of black coffee as he flipped through the pages. He noticed a woman sitting at a table across the room. She seemed out of place. Her hands were trembling slightly as she held her cup, and she kept glancing around the room, almost as if she were looking for someone or trying to find the right moment to speak. She looked young, but carried a serious expression that made her seem older than her years. David couldn't help but notice her because there was something about her that seemed vulnerable yet determined at the same time. He tried to go back to his book, but curiosity got the better of him. The woman's eyes met his briefly, and she quickly looked away. David wasn't sure why, but he felt a pull to pay attention to her. It wasn't common for him to notice strangers in such a way, but today it felt different. She seemed like she had a story that needed to be heard. After a few minutes, she stood up and walked over to his table. David's first instinct was to politely ask if she needed help, but she surprised him by asking, in a soft voice, if she could have a word with him in private. David nodded, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. She sat down, fidgeting with the edge of her scarf, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, she spoke, and her words caught David completely off guard. "Could you act as my husband for a day?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. He looked at her, searching her face for any sign that she was joking, but her expression was earnest, almost desperate. He hesitated, unsure how to respond. I'm sorry, did you just say?" he began, but she nodded, confirming that he had indeed heard her right. She explained that she understood how strange the request sounded. She wasn't asking lightly. She needed his help for a very specific reason, one that had nothing to do with love or romance, at least not at the moment. David listened intently, trying to make sense of what she was saying. The woman, his name was Clara, told him about her family. She had been invited to a gathering that she could not avoid. She was worried about the questions and judgment she would face. Her relatives were traditional and had certain expectations about her life, especially about marriage. Clara had no one to accompany her who could help ease the tension. She had thought about it for days and realized that pretending to have a supportive husband for a single day might be the only way to protect herself from embarrassment and to keep her dignity intact. David found himself absorbed in her story. There was a sincerity in her voice that made it hard to dismiss her request. She wasn't trying to manipulate him or take advantage of him. She was simply in a difficult situation, and she was asking for help from a stranger who might be willing to step in and provide it. It was unusual, yes, but David could feel the weight of her worry, the fear in her eyes, and the exhaustion in her posture. He understood that this was more than a whimsical idea. It was a matter of her peace of mind. He asked her why she had chosen him, a complete stranger, for such a personal request. Clara admitted that she had noticed him in the shop before, quietly observing people, and she had sensed a calmness and kindness in him. She hoped he might be someone who could understand her situation without judgment. David was still taken aback. He had never imagined that someone would approach him with such a request. But he couldn't ignore the vulnerability in her words. He had helped people in small ways before, even strangers. But nothing like this. David asked her how she imagined this working. Clara explained that the gathering was just one day. She needed someone who could be supportive, answer questions if necessary, and give her the appearance of a companion who genuinely cared about her. There would be no expectations beyond that. She wanted to make it clear that she wasn't asking for a relationship or anything beyond the single day. It was a temporary arrangement, a favor in a situation that left her feeling trapped. David leaned back in his chair, trying to process everything. The request was unconventional, even bizarre. But he also understood the fear and anxiety that came with facing a judgmental crowd alone. He thought about the times he had seen friends and family struggle with societal expectations, the pressure to fit into molds, and the relief a little support could bring. It made sense in a way. Why Clara would reach out to someone who seemed trustworthy and compassionate. He asked her more questions about the gathering, trying to understand the specifics. Clara told him about the family members who would be there, kinds of questions she expected, and the little scenarios she had imagined where having a supportive partner might help. She admitted that she felt embarrassed, asking a stranger to step into such a personal role. But desperation had left her with no other options. David listened carefully, imagining how he might act, what he would say, and how he could help her without drawing unnecessary attention. As they continued talking, David realized that Clara was not only nervous about the gathering, but also about being seen as weak or incapable. She had always been independent, but this situation had pushed her to the edge. He could feel her need for support, for someone to stand by her and help her navigate a social minefield. The more she spoke, the more David felt a sense of responsibility. He wasn't just being asked to pretend. He was being asked to offer protection and comfort in a way that mattered deeply to her. After a long pause, David finally spoke. "I think I understand why you need this," he said carefully. "It's unusual, yes, but I can see how much it matters to you. I want to help. But we need to talk about the details so we both know what to expect." Clara's eyes lit up with relief, and a small smile appeared on her face. It was a smile of gratitude, of hope, and of trust that David hadn't expected but welcomed. They spent the next hour discussing the plan in detail. David asked questions about how he should behave, what topics to avoid, and how to respond if anyone asked tricky questions. Clara explained her family's personalities, the dynamics of their conversations, and what would make them suspicious. She even described small gestures and words that would help make the act believable. David took notes, asked clarifying questions, and suggested ways to make the day run smoothly. By the end of their conversation, they had a rough plan that both felt confident about. Before leaving, Clara thanked him sincerely. Her hand shook slightly as she held his. She said that even agreeing to consider her request had lifted a weight off her shoulders. David felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never met this woman before, yet he already felt a sense of connection. Her vulnerability and honesty had made an impression on him, and he realized that sometimes helping someone in an unexpected way could bring meaning to a day in a way nothing else could. As David watched her leave the coffee shop, he thought about what he had agreed to. It was a big commitment, even for just one day. But he also knew that it was worth it if it could help Clara face her family with confidence. He didn't know what the day would hold, but he felt ready to step into the role she needed, to offer her the support she deserved. And as he sipped his coffee and returned to his book, he felt a sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement about the unusual journey that had just begun. After agreeing to help Clara, David spent the evening thinking about the unusual situation he had just committed to. The thought of acting as someone's husband for a day was strange, even surreal. He had never imagined his life would involve something like this. Yet the more he thought about Clara, the more he realized he couldn't ignore her need. She was not asking for anything beyond her family gathering. She simply needed support, a shield from judgment and uncomfortable questions. It seemed simple on the surface, but David knew it would take careful attention to make it believable. The next morning, David arrived at Clara's temporary apartment. She greeted him with a nervous smile, holding a cup of tea, and thanked him again. He noticed how tense she still was, but there was also a spark of hope in her eyes. They started talking about the plan again, going over every detail carefully. Clara explained her relatives' personalities, their habits, and the questions they might ask. She shared stories from past gatherings that made her feel embarrassed or pressured. And David listened attentively, taking mental notes. It was clear that she had been carrying this worry alone for a long time. Clara also shared her expectations for the day. She wanted him to act naturally, to show genuine support, and to respond with confidence if anyone asked questions. There were moments she feared might be tricky, like relatives noticing how close they seemed or questioning their background. David suggested small gestures and comments to make their relationship seem more authentic. They practiced hand gestures, small conversations, and casual touches that would make them appear comfortable around each other. Clara felt a little more at ease with each practice run, and David could sense her anxiety slowly easing as they rehearsed. A surprising connection began to form between them. David started noticing Clara's gentle humor, her intelligence, and the way she cared about the people around her despite feeling anxious about her family. Clara noticed David's calm demeanor, his patience, and the way he seemed to understand her without judgment. They shared small laughs, moments of awkwardness, and quiet reflections. Each moment made the strange arrangement feel less like an act and more like a mutual understanding. Neither of them expected this bond to grow so quickly, yet it did, quietly, without words being spoken. By mid-afternoon, they decided to shop for gifts for her relatives. Clara insisted on buying something thoughtful for each person, and David accompanied her, offering suggestions and carrying the packages. The shopping trip became an exercise in teamwork. They discussed preferences, colors, and little details that would make the gifts meaningful. David found himself genuinely enjoying the process, and Clara seemed relieved to have someone who could guide her without pressuring her. Even in simple tasks, the trust between them grew. During a break in their shopping, they sat at a small cafe. Clara admitted that she had never felt so anxious about family gatherings before. She'd always been independent, solving her problems alone. But this situation had shown her that asking for help was not weakness. David nodded, acknowledging the courage it took to reach out to a stranger. They talked about life, fears, and small moments that mattered to them. It was an intimate conversation, yet not in a romantic sense. Just two people connecting over honesty and vulnerability. As the day progressed, they went over scenarios that might happen at the gathering. David asked Clara to imagine questions about her career, friends, and personal life. They practiced responses, ensuring they sounded natural. Clara explained her family's tendency to tease or pressure her, and David helped her think of ways to navigate those moments without appearing defensive or uncomfortable. They even rehearsed light humor, small compliments, and gestures of affection that would seem genuine but not overdone. Clara began to feel more confident, and David realized that this preparation was building more than just a believable act. It was giving her a real sense of support. By evening, they decided to dress in advance for the gathering. David helped Clara pick an outfit that was elegant yet comfortable. They discussed hairstyles, accessories, and small details that would make her feel poised. Clara's nervousness returned slightly as she looked in the mirror, but David offered reassurance with a simple nod and a quiet comment about how she looked confident and natural. His calm presence had a grounding effect on her, and she found herself trusting him completely. While preparing, Clara shared more about her life. She spoke about dreams she had postponed, the pressures of expectations, and the loneliness she sometimes felt. David listened without interrupting, giving her space to express her feelings. He shared small stories from his own life, experiences of helping people in unexpected ways, and lessons he had learned about empathy and kindness. The conversation deepened their understanding of each other, creating a quiet bond built on honesty, respect, and shared humanity. As night approached, they reviewed their plan one last time. Clara expressed gratitude for David's patience, guidance, and willingness to step into an unfamiliar role. David reassured her that he understood the importance of the day and was committed to helping her. They discussed small cues and signals to communicate during the gathering, ensuring that they could support each other seamlessly. Clara felt a sense of relief she hadn't expected, and David realized that the day had already changed him. He felt a quiet pride in being able to help someone in a meaningful way, even in such an unusual situation, before going to sleep that night. Clara reflected on how strange yet comforting it was to have someone she barely knew offer such genuine help. David, on the other hand, thought about the trust she had placed in him and how important it was to honor that trust. Both knew that the next day would be challenging, but they also knew that together they could face it. The preparation had created a sense of partnership, and while it started as a temporary arrangement, it was slowly turning into something more meaningful. Connection built on empathy, courage, and understanding. The day had been exhausting, yet fulfilling. They had taken an unusual request and turned it into a plan, a strategy, and a growing friendship. Clara felt supported, less anxious, and ready to face her family. David felt needed, useful, and quietly inspired by her courage. They both understood that the journey ahead was unpredictable, but for the first time, Clara felt she would not have to face it alone. And David felt he had found a rare and unexpected opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. They went to bed that night with thoughts of the next day, aware that it would be a turning point not just for Clara but for both of them, in ways they could not yet imagine. The morning of the family gathering arrived, and David could feel the anticipation in the air. He woke up early, reflecting on the unusual journey he had embarked on. Clara was preparing in the next room, her voice faintly calling out for his opinion on small details. There was a sense of shared responsibility between them now, a quiet understanding that this day mattered deeply to both. David dressed carefully, making sure everything looked natural yet presentable, knowing that their act needed to be convincing. When he entered the room, Clara was standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her outfit. She looked nervous but composed. David offered a few gentle suggestions on posture and gestures, and she listened intently, trusting his guidance. The small touches of preparation, how to stand, how to smile, how to interact naturally, were what would make the difference. Clara took a deep breath, and David could see the relief in her eyes, knowing he was there by her side. As they left the apartment, the city seemed alive with activity. The streets were bustling, cars honking, people moving quickly in every direction. Clara clutched her small bag, a mixture of excitement and nervousness in her expression. David offered a reassuring nod, and she smiled faintly. The ride to the family home was quiet, filled with shared glances and small attempts at light conversation. They reviewed the plan one last time, going over possible questions and scenarios. David encouraged Clara to breathe, reminding her that she was not alone. Arriving at the house, they were greeted warmly by Clara's relatives. David introduced himself naturally, keeping his tone friendly and confident. Clara's relatives immediately noticed his calm demeanor and supportive presence. He answered questions about work, hobbies, and life with ease, making it seem as if he had been part of Clara's life for much longer than a day. Clara observed him closely, feeling a mixture of relief and admiration. David's presence was already easing the tension she had anticipated. Throughout the afternoon, David played his role seamlessly. When relatives asked about their relationship, he responded with light humor and gentle affirmation, never overdoing it but always showing support. Clara felt more confident with each interaction. She noticed how his small gestures, touching her shoulder lightly, offering a kind smile, leaning in during conversations, created an aura of partnership that made her feel safe and respected. The nervous tension she had carried for weeks slowly melted away. During the gathering, there were moments of challenge. Some relatives were curious and asked detailed questions about their life together. David responded calmly, using the information Clara had shared in their rehearsals. His ability to listen and respond naturally impressed not only Clara but also the family members, who began to treat him with genuine interest and respect. Clara found herself smiling more freely, laughing lightly, and enjoying the interactions instead of dreading them. David's support allowed her to shine in a way she hadn't expected. As the afternoon turned into evening, they moved to the dining area for a more intimate family conversation. David maintained his composure, helping Clara navigate tricky questions with tact and humor. Clara noticed how relaxed she felt in his presence, how easy it was to rely on him. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of belonging, even in a setting that had previously caused her anxiety. She realized that the connection they had built over the past few days was genuine and comforting. There were small moments that neither had anticipated. A relative asked about a personal struggle Clara had faced, and David's empathetic response reassured everyone in the room. Another moment involved a discussion about career choices, where David subtly encouraged Clara to speak proudly about her accomplishments. Each interaction strengthened the impression that they were genuinely partners, and Clara felt a quiet gratitude for his presence. She also noticed a warmth growing between them, an unspoken understanding that went beyond the act. Later, they stepped outside for a brief walk in the garden. Clara needed a moment to breathe and collect her thoughts. David walked beside her, offering gentle support without words. They talked quietly about small things, sharing laughter over minor misunderstandings during the gathering. The tension had lifted, replaced by a comfortable camaraderie. Clara realized that David's presence had not only protected her from judgment, but also allowed her to enjoy moments she had feared as the evening continued. Clara's relatives began to comment on how well they seemed to know each other, complimenting their apparent harmony. David responded with modesty, always keeping the focus on Clara, letting her shine while he supported her quietly. Clara noticed how he subtly adjusted his actions, always prioritizing her comfort and confidence. She felt a deep appreciation for his thoughtfulness and presence. The gathering started winding down, and David and Clara shared small glances of relief and accomplishment. The family had been impressed, and more importantly, Clara had navigated the day without the anxiety she had feared. David could see the change in her demeanor, the way she carried herself, the ease of her smile, and the confidence in her voice. He felt a quiet pride in helping her through such an important day. Their act had been convincing, but more than that, it had created a genuine sense of partnership and trust as they prepared to leave the family home. Clara turned to David, her eyes reflecting gratitude and emotion. She thanked him for his patience, kindness, and understanding. David smiled, acknowledging the effort she had put into facing her fears and expressing pride in how she had handled herself. The day had been challenging, but it had also been transformative. Clara had gained confidence, and David had experienced the unique satisfaction of helping someone in a deeply meaningful way. The ride back to the apartment was quiet, filled with reflective silence. Both were thinking about the day and what it had taught them. Clara realized that asking for help had not been a weakness, but a brave choice. David reflected on the unusual situation and how rewarding it was to support someone selflessly. They both understood that this day had changed their perspectives on trust, courage, and connection. When they returned, they unpacked small gifts and shared a light meal, talking about the moments that had stood out to them during the gathering. Clara laughed over a few awkward but funny interactions, and David joined in, sharing his observations and impressions. The atmosphere was relaxed, comfortable, and warm. Clara felt a deep sense of relief and appreciation, while David experienced a sense of fulfillment he hadn't expected from such an unusual arrangement. By the end of the evening, they sat quietly, reflecting on how far they had come together. Clara expressed her gratitude once more, and David reassured her that it had been an honor to help. The day had been challenging, yes, but it had also been meaningful, teaching them both lessons about empathy, courage, and the power of connection. What had started as a strange request had turned into a day filled with growth, understanding, and genuine care. They both realized that the experience had left a lasting impression. Clara had faced her fears and gained confidence, and David had discovered the joy of stepping into someone else's life to make a positive difference. The bond they had formed was unique, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Neither could have predicted how deeply the day would affect them, but both knew it was a turning point. They had proven that even in the most unusual circumstances, genuine support and understanding could create profound change, leaving a lasting impact on both their lives. The next morning, Clara felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The previous day had been long, but it had gone surprisingly well. David arrived at her apartment, and they shared a quiet moment over coffee, reflecting on how smoothly the gathering had gone. Clara admitted that she had never imagined someone could make such a difference in her life so quickly. David smiled, acknowledging the effort she had put into trusting him and facing her family. There was a silent understanding between them. Their unusual arrangement had created a bond neither expected, as they planned for the next steps. Clara expressed her lingering concerns about how she might handle future gatherings. David reassured her, emphasizing that the confidence she had shown the day before would carry over into other situations. They discussed strategies for future encounters, small ways to manage stress, and techniques to maintain composure under pressure. Clara felt empowered, realizing that the support she had experienced was not just about David's presence, but about the belief he had instilled in her later in the day. They went out for a short walk to clear their minds. The city streets were bustling, but it felt peaceful for them. Clara shared more about her life, the dreams she had put aside, and the pressures she had faced from her family. David listened attentively, offering quiet encouragement and understanding. There was no judgment, only a genuine willingness to hear her story. Clara felt lighter as she spoke, realizing how much she had kept to herself over the years. David's calm presence made it easier to share her thoughts and fears as they walked through a park. They noticed children playing and families enjoying the sunny day. Clara remarked on how different it felt to be part of a supportive environment, even if temporarily. David agreed, pointing out that sometimes life presented moments where support came in unexpected forms. They both laughed quietly, sharing a sense of connection and reflection. The conversation drifted naturally, moving from past experiences to hopes for the future. Clara admitted that she had learned the importance of asking for help, and David shared small stories of times he had stepped into unexpected roles to assist others. In the afternoon, they returned to Clara's apartment to finalize the gifts and letters she planned to send to her relatives as a token of appreciation. David helped her organize everything, making sure each gift felt personal and thoughtful. They worked side by side, laughing over small mistakes and celebrating little victories. Clara felt a growing sense of comfort and pride in how she had handled herself with David's support. He had become more than just a temporary companion. He had become a source of reassurance and confidence. As evening approached, they prepared a small dinner together. Cooking side by side, they shared stories and laughed over minor mishaps in the kitchen. Clara realized that David's presence had made her life feel lighter and more manageable. She appreciated his patience, guidance, and understanding. David, in turn, felt fulfilled by the opportunity to help someone navigate a difficult situation with grace and dignity. Their time together had transformed from a temporary arrangement into a meaningful connection that neither had anticipated. After dinner, they sat quietly on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Clara expressed her gratitude once more, emphasizing how much David's support had meant to her. He reassured her that helping her had been a privilege and that her courage and determination had been inspiring. They reflected on the journey they had shared, acknowledging the challenges, successes, and unexpected moments of connection. The day had been transformative, deepening their understanding of each other and themselves. Later, they discussed the idea of maintaining their connection beyond the temporary arrangement. Clara admitted that she valued David's presence and guidance more than she had expected. David agreed, noting that their shared experiences had created a rare bond built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. They talked about future plans, small ways to support each other, and the possibility of continuing to learn from one another. Clara felt a sense of hope and reassurance, knowing that she no longer had to face challenges alone. As night fell, they reviewed the events of the past days, acknowledging the growth and changes that had occurred. Clara recognized the strength she had discovered within herself. While David appreciated the impact of his actions on someone's life, they both realized that the experience had been more than a simple favor. It had been a journey of understanding, connection, and personal growth. The unusual request had led to profound insights and a lasting bond that neither could have predicted in the quiet moments before sleep. Clara reflected on how her fears had been alleviated, how her confidence had grown, and how David's presence had provided more than just temporary support. David thought about the ways in which small acts of kindness could profoundly affect someone's life. They both recognized that the experience had been transformative, shaping their perspectives and deepening their appreciation for human connection. By the end of the night, Clara felt a renewed sense of self-assurance, and David felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had made a meaningful difference. The unusual arrangement had evolved into something far more valuable, a genuine bond built on trust, respect, and understanding. They had faced challenges together, supported each other through anxiety and fear, and discovered the power of empathy and connection. The day had ended, but the impact of their shared experience would continue to shape their lives in meaningful ways. The morning after the gathering, Clara woke up feeling a mixture of relief and reflection. The events of the previous days had left a lasting impression on her. She had faced her fears, handled difficult situations with grace, and experienced the support of someone who had entered her life unexpectedly. David was already awake, quietly preparing coffee. And when Clara entered the kitchen, she felt a warmth in the presence of someone who had become much more than a temporary companion. They sat together, sipping their coffee, discussing the previous day. Clara expressed her gratitude again, her voice tinged with emotion. She admitted that she had never imagined a stranger could make such a significant difference in her life in such a short time. David smiled, acknowledging her words and reassuring her that the courage she had shown was truly hers. He had only helped bring out what was already inside her as the day went on. They began talking about what had changed for Clara. She realized that the confidence she had gained was not temporary. It was something she could carry with her into future gatherings and situations. David encouraged her to see that the support they shared was not limited to a single day, but could inspire her to trust in her own strength. They discussed strategies for maintaining composure and confidence in the future, ways to navigate difficult conversations, and the importance of self-belief. Clara also opened up more about her personal life. She spoke about the dreams she had postponed, the pressure of family expectations, and moments of doubt she had faced. David listened attentively, offering encouragement without judgment. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with shared laughter, quiet reflection, and the comfort of understanding. Clara realized that talking to someone who genuinely listened had brought her a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in years. As the afternoon approached, they decided to go for a walk in the park. The city was alive with activity, but the park offered a peaceful escape. They watched children play, couples walk hand in hand, and families enjoy the sunny day. Clara remarked on how different it felt to experience a supportive presence in such a normal setting. David agreed, noting that sometimes the most meaningful moments happened in the simplest ways. They shared observations, small stories, and thoughts about life, deepening their connection with each passing minute. During their walk, Clara reflected on the trust she had placed in David and how it had been honored. She realized that asking for help did not make her weak. It had taken courage to reach out to a stranger and rely on someone else. David, in turn, reflected on how fulfilling it had been to assist someone genuinely, to step into an unexpected role and make a real difference. The experience had been transformative for both of them, creating a bond built on empathy, trust, and respect. Later, they returned to Clara's apartment to finalize a few remaining details. Clara had prepared small thank you notes and gifts for her relatives, and David helped her organize everything. They worked side by side, sharing laughter over minor mistakes and celebrating small successes. Clara felt a deep sense of accomplishment and pride. Realizing that she had navigated challenging situations with dignity and confidence, David felt quietly satisfied, knowing that his support had helped her shine. As evening approached, they prepared a simple dinner together. Cooking side by side, they continued their conversation, sharing thoughts, memories, and aspirations. Clara realized that David's presence had made her life feel lighter and more manageable. She appreciated his patience, guidance, and understanding. David felt fulfilled by the opportunity to support someone in such a meaningful way. Their time together had evolved from a temporary arrangement into a genuine connection that neither had expected. After dinner, they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights and reflecting on the days that had passed. Clara expressed her gratitude once more, acknowledging the profound impact David had made on her life. David reassured her that it had been a privilege to help, and that her courage and determination had been inspiring. They discussed the lessons they had learned, the growth they had experienced, and the value of genuine human connection. The unusual request that had brought them together had led to unexpected insights and lasting change as the night deepened. They talked about the future. Clara admitted that she valued David's presence and guidance more than she had anticipated. David agreed, noting that their shared experiences had created a rare bond built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. They discussed ways to maintain their connection, continue supporting each other, and learn from their experiences. Clara felt hopeful and reassured, knowing that she no longer had to face challenges alone. Before going to sleep, Clara reflected on how far she had come. She had faced her fears, gained confidence, and experienced the power of trust and support. David thought about the profound effect small acts of kindness could have on someone's life. They both recognized that the experience had been transformative, shaping their perspectives and deepening their appreciation for human connection. The bond they had formed would continue to influence their lives in meaningful ways, in the quiet moments before sleep. Clara felt a renewed sense of self-assurance, and David felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had made a meaningful difference. The unusual arrangement had evolved into something far more valuable, a genuine friendship built on trust, respect, and understanding. They had faced challenges together, supported each other through anxiety and fear, and discovered the profound impact of empathy and connection. The day had ended, but the lessons and the bond they had formed would continue to shape their lives. Both understood that life could bring unexpected requests and encounters that could change everything, and that sometimes the most extraordinary connections came from the most unlikely beginnings.